like to do free range. Woo! And just had to have a note about no shenanigans. Yeah. So today I was visiting with a friend a while ago, and some of you may know I'm a yoga teacher, and that's one of the other things I do in my life now, is that I teach yoga and I specialize in working with seniors and veterans, and have enjoyed it immensely. And visiting with a friend, he said, "So when did you decide to become a yoga teacher?" Well, I've done yoga since the 70s. Decided to become a teacher when I turned 60, which was over a decade ago. And I knew that I was at the end of one dispensation of my life. There was something new coming and I wanted to do something new. And so I was explaining that to her, and she said, "Oh, so instead of retiring, you went into ReFIREment." Oh, yes. So today we're going to talk about ReFIREment because this is a time when that is needed. There is so much chaos on the planet. Have you noticed? And just a little bit, and it's amplified. The chaos is amplified. There's a 24/7 news cycle, there's social media, there's the war, there's homeless, there's drugs, there's the environment, there's gender equity, there's inequality, there's marginalization, there's health issues. And as I was saying, going through all of the things that are impacting us dramatically, whether personally or not, because there is only one of us here, we are all impacted by it. And when we notice the chaos of the crazy in the world outside of us, a lot of people have a challenge being able to stay centered in their God essence. Can't do it because there is so much chaos manifested in the brute mind, shall we say, that people are stimulated in their base self. The amygdala, the reptilian brain, the part of us that is always on the lookout for the threat. And it shows up in our lives as anxiety, fear, and enemy patterning, which we see a lot of a hyperpolarization that is occurring. I mean, I can go on and on as I start listing thing after thing where systems are being disrupted. My mind went, whoa, pandemic. When did all of these things converge? How long ago was it? It wasn't that long ago. It's been in our lifetime, and you and I are here because we decided we could do something about it. And we are not being asked to be the visionary and the global thinker. Speaking of chaos, yesterday the global power outage. I mean, just every day there's one more noise, one more bit, one more bite of chaos, just one more. And we are being invited because we know we are called to the awareness that how we hold our mind is impacting all that is impacting this planet. We do not have the luxury of a negative thought anymore. We don't have the luxury of going down the rabbit hole of pretending like we're going to be able to get away from this. And most of us are not visionaries on a global scale where we can see the overriding need for any one of the individual issues. And because we're not a challenge, knowing that there's so much chaos all around us, and we can't get a whole complete picture of it, it's very easy to want to retire from life. It is very easy to want to pull the covers up and pretend like it's not happening. And we don't have the luxury of pretending that it's not happening. However, because of who we are and our willingness to be activated in truth, we know that we can impact our little corner of the world. The only time we ever feel like giving up is when it feels so overwhelming, so many things. But if we figure out what is our meaningful contribution to life at this time, and do that thing, give a meaningful bump of our gifts into life, we are going to change the trajectory of the chaos and find our way into the new realm of life that is trying to emerge. None of us really have a full picture of what it is, but if we can allow ourselves to retire into the inner world to regenerate, then we can be refired to bring ourselves forward with our light blazing to make a difference on this planet in small ways. Unless you're a complete systems thinker, and if you are, amazing, I think Ken Wilber, amazing thinkers. I am not that. But I know that there's a little corner of life that I can stand in, where I can hear and feel the calling of God as it's asking me to show up here, to show up now, and to give my gift. And wherever you are, wherever I am, when we do that, we are healers. We're like the white blood cells healing the infection of the disruption. We are the remedy. You and I are the remedy for what life is bringing to us now. And so, rather than continue to talk about the disruptions, because I'm sure you can add 6 or 10 things to the list, but instead of talking about that, let's take a little journey inward, do a little meditation, and then we'll come back and talk more about the remedies. And I had a short little visit with Lisa this morning, Reverend Lisa, who wasn't speaking, but we were laughing because you never know what's going to show up on the stand here. I thought this was going in a completely different direction than what's happening. I'm okay with that. So we're going to do a meditation, and this came from a woman. This came from a woman, speak closer, from a woman named Claudia Cummins, and I admire her essays and her work so much. And this spoke to the time that we're in, and it is called Surrender. I'm going to invite you, should it feel safe and comfortable, to close your eyes and maybe plant both feet on. This blessing wants you to remember the gift of surrender. It wants you to unclench your fists and soften your mind. It wants you to let go of your ceaseless, empty struggles in order to claim a cleaner breath and a deeper peace. This blessing wants you to let life be just as it is. It wants you to reshape your vision until you can see the gifts that arrive unbidden. when we simply relax into what is, without holding on to a single thing. Surrender calls us over and over to let go, to relinquish tight control over our lives, to settle in, perhaps sometimes to even sink. And it requires faith that despite the letting go, we are still held in the steady arms of life. This blessing wants you to remember the deep blue relief that comes when we accept life on its own terms, full and free. It urges us to walk across the threshold of acceptance and all the way home to contentment and true love. I want to tell you about a friend of mine. His name is Reverend Charles Geddes, and Charles is a minister for, hello, he's a minister for the Centers for Spiritual Living, which is signs of mine, the Ernest Holmes output. His spiritual grounding came from Ernest Holmes. Charles is 80 years old now. 48 years ago, he created the Big Sky Retreat in Big Sky, Montana. It's a spiritual retreat that has brought luminaries of the New Thought and Elizabethan community, not just ministers, speakers, healers, musicians, across the board, everybody who's anybody, and many people that aren't everybody and anybody have come together to celebrate what is possible in the world. And this year is the last year of the Big Sky Retreat. They decided that this is it. I've had the joy of being a yoga teacher there for the last 3 years, which has been an absolute blessing. But the thing about Charles is, we were speaking the other day and just giving him flowers for what a powerful and potent creation he had made that had evolved the planet of consciousness so profoundly for almost 50 years. And that it was coming to a conclusion, and what a challenge that must be. And he looked at me and he said, I'm not done. And I was like, oh yeah, you are not done. He has a project which you can find online called Mind Your Own Becoming. MYOB, Mind Your Own Becoming. And it's about giving a voice to people who have not mattered socially. He grew up as a marginalized human being and found religious science as a way to really plant his flag of possibility on this earth. That's Charles. And he is a full embodiment of ReFIREment. I'm not done yet. Besides Mind Your Own Becoming, he does not know what's next. He just knows that there is next. That he has an absolute willingness to stay present with the inner dimension of what we called last time we met, the divine economy. He will stay present with the dimension of his divine economy. that place in the soul that knows that is a storehouse of all the wisdom, all the connection, all that is. He's going to stay present with that, and he's going to emerge something new into the world at 80 years old, which reminded me of a quote from Charles Fillmore, which he wrote when he was 80 years old. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do that which is mine to do. At 80 years old, Charles Fillmore, Charles Dickens, boy, parallel. Keep going. Whatever it is that feels, senses, seems like a meaningful contribution to life, do more of that. Don't find despair in the big picture. Stay present with the inner picture. Stay present with what is within. And ask yourself, what is it that I could offer the world right now in my little corner, in my neighborhood? If there's something that really catches the mind, and you're thinking, I'm really worried about the unhoused people. If that is something that really strikes your heart, there's lots of ways to be involved that don't require you to wander the streets, passing out tents or cleaning up the tarps. You don't have to do that, but there's ways to become involved. That may not be your thing. Maybe your thing is you're a gardener and you grow food and you grow extra food and are willing to share that with feeders and food banks. Or maybe you're a gardener and you just like to grow flowers because they're beautiful. How many times have any of you been riding along in the car or walking down the street and see a garden and go, oh my heart, oh, it's so beautiful. Beauty is a gift. Making beauty from the ground up is a gift. My grandkids and I sometimes, when we're in the car, we have a game, and it's called Who's Smiling in the Car Next to Us? If you are driving down the street sometime, notice who's in the car next to you, and notice how many people are smiling. And if they deign to look over at you, give them a big smile. That's the game. See who we can make smile. You'd be surprised how many people do not smile when they are driving around in the car. But a smile goes a long way to really lightening and brightening someone's day. The path of contribution, finding our meaningful life, what is meaningful to us? Like part of Will's meaningful life is his music. He gives that. Some people, meaningful life is just to be able to be present with the oneness and know that the oneness is the only thing that there is, and affirm that consistently and dynamically, day to day. What's your essence? Is it joy, kindness, compassion, peace? Find that gift within and wander the planet looking for ways to get that gift. What are some practical activities I could do to demonstrate that essence in the world? And while the thinking mind might go, that doesn't make a difference, or I can't think of anything, when we identify what our tone, our vibration, our frequency is, that tone, vibration, frequency within us will rise up and give us an answer. And every day, every single day, we can receive guidance about how to deliver that to the world. It is not about having a grand gesture. It's about small things, which reminds me of a poem by Martha Postlewaite. Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. A practical activity for living a life of contribution, to live a life that feels meaningful, is to allow ourselves the space and the time to open that treasure that is within us. And when we do that, we'll call that the ReFIREment. We go within. We can regenerate so that we can refire and come back into the world with our next gift, our next thing to do. One of the most important things that has popped up for me recently was, it shows up pretty regularly. And this might or might not sound familiar to you. Here goes. Do you see everybody as a human being? A lot of us don't. We don't see people as human beings. Can we actually see each other as humans that are generous, creative, and kind? If we exclude anybody from our story, and yes, all of us have done that, when we exclude anybody from that story, that is a pathway to insanity and chaos. So we're being asked, do we see other people as humans? Or are we in the thrall of the illusion of insignificance, where we see other people as insignificant? Think about being in a grocery store if you're not doing self-check. If you're going through the grocery store, there's a clerk. Do you look them in the eye? Do you ask how their day is with genuine curiosity and interest? Or the person at the gas station, I don't do self-serve. I live in Oregon, I'm well trained to do that. That said, looking at people in the eye and actually seeing them. Had the experience recently of having a couple of beloved friends over for lunch. And there was a knock at the door, and I'm thinking maybe it was a delivery. So I got up from the lunch table and opened the door. And there was a young man standing there, and he was holding 2 books in his hands. He was probably about 10 or 11, is my guess. He's holding 2 books in his hand. And I looked at him and I said, oh, I'm not going to do this today. And he looked at me and I went in the house and I shut the door and went back to lunch myself. And then later on, I had this realization. I had made him insignificant. That reaction had put him in a position of being insignificant. Whether he felt that or not, I don't know. But I knew that that is what I'd done. I had made him insignificant. I have not seen him as a human being. It would have taken me 1, 2, or 3 sentences to find out what he needed. He had grabbed some books from the little library and was going to sell them to me. That's what I decided he was doing, because he left the books in the driveway when he left. But that said, I suffered. I'm going to call it suffering for a few days because I wish I had done it differently. When we have that sensation of I wish I'd done it differently, chances are we're thinking about another person or an interaction that we had with another person. And wishing that we had done it differently is actually suffering because we feel bad. And so when we are suffering, so there's levels of suffering, and a lot of times people go, yeah, but that's nothing compared to what's happening over here or what's happening out there, or what suffering is suffering, little or big, suffering is suffering. And when I create suffering in another, if I offer insignificance to another person, they're going to suffer. And I'm going to suffer. Why? Because the thought does not leave its source. Course in Miracles talks about that. A thought does not leave its source. So when I looked at that child standing there, and I saw him as significant to my day, to that moment, dismissing him as a human being. Well, he may have received something that didn't feel good to him, which I'm sure happened. What is so is that stored in my consciousness. That belonged to me. And I had the opportunity to realize, oh, that's something I'm not going to do again. The next time someone comes up and I'm not seeing them as human, I'm going to stop, catch a breath, allow myself space, and not be so narcissistic but think that what I want to do is more important than really connecting with the person. Here's a word about narcissism. We've all got it. It's not singular. We like to throw it around, but a lot of our conversations about self-care is about me. And the New York, the UN did a survey, a study around the world. And it was about, would you be willing to sacrifice some of your resources to assist people in need? Almost 70% of people say yes, absolutely. So while the noise of chaos is amplified on social media and the 24/7 news cycle, underneath 5 billion people are willing to sacrifice nickels, dimes, and resources to help people. And that, to me, is the headline. So here are the takeaways from today. Find activities that can amplify what you find to be your path of contribution or your sense of having a meaningful. Retire to regenerate and then refire and get out there. Bring something new to life. Bring another smile to life. And then last but not least, see other people as humans and allow each person we encounter to feel like they are significant. Yeah. I'll leave you with the Teddy Roosevelt quote because I think this sums it up. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. Yeah. So it is.